Uh-oh, Man United have lost again, this time to Galatasaray, just after they lost to Crystal Palace. What on earth is going on? This is their worst start to a season since 1989 when they finished 13th. They've now lost 2 Champions League games in a row. What is actually happening? Why is this happening? Well, they can't score goals. They've only scored 7 in the Premier League so far, which is 1 more than Everton. So why can't they score? Well, it's because they're not creating enough chances or good enough chances. Their non-penalty expected goals puts them level with West Ham, which tells us that not creating enough chances for a team like Man United. So why aren't they creating chances? Well, I think it's to do with how Ten Hag wants them to play. He wants them to be able to create chances through transitional moments, so getting the ball forward very quickly from back to front, and then trying to capitalise on a loose ball, pouncing on it, and then getting players in behind to try and score. But to get to that point, you have to be good in build-up as well, and they aren't. So in build-up, the circuit that you'll see quite often is that this will either happen back and forward, or it'll go to this player here, he'll go back to the goalkeeper, then the goalkeeper will go back here, and you see this circuit quite a lot. And then the opposition team will push up as they do it, push them ever closer to goal, and then the goalkeeper has to clear it. That happens quite a lot. But really, they want to play through the middle, through one of these pivot players, either Mount or Casemiro, or if Amrabat comes inside, there's this pivot player. They want to do this and play inside the pitch. But teams just have this little block here to try and block the middle of the space. So when they play this pass in, it can only really go backwards, and it goes back to Onana. So the other circuit you often see is from a defender into here, who then instantly has to go back to the goalkeeper, who then has to clear it. But sometimes this is on purpose, it's by design, because by drawing the team out, it creates space further back. So when Onana launches the ball, there's purpose to it. And the defender might come in, win the ball, knocks it loose, and then you create a transitional moment. If you can get on the second ball, pounce around it, suddenly then you can try and thread something through for Højlund to get in behind, or Rashford to get in behind like this. And so you're sort of generating chances that way. But the point being, they're not great at playing through the middle of the park, especially from the back. And when someone like Mount does drop in to try and get the ball, they're closely marked, someone stays tight to them, so the opposition is showing them inside. He then has no option but really to play it safe, and then this player has no option but really to play it safe because no one's available to receive a pass. And so against Crystal Palace, who were doing exactly this thing, just tracking every single movement, what you had was Amrabat's coming inside to offer another option inside here, which meant there was no wide width, so Rashford's pulling it wide. And then in doing this circuit where Mount might drop in, play it back, they're able to find Rashford here, and the first good chance of the entire game that they had was from this pulling Crystal Palace up, which then generated space in behind, so Rashford could ping the ball over the top for a striker to get in behind to get a shot at goal, which almost goes in, cleared off the line. So it's a chance. They have created in transition. It does sort of make sense. But teams are blocking them from build-up all the time. Wolves played a really aggressive man-to-man 4-4-2 shape, stopped them completely from playing through the middle. They had to keep going wide, they were getting pressured, they were losing the ball, turning it over, and that's why they aren't able to keep possession against teams like that. But Andre Onana was meant to fix this, the goalkeeper with the magical feet. And what you see from his pass map against Galatasaray is a player who is launching the ball quite often. Now, part of this is by design. What you've got here is the black passes are successful ones, often short to teammates going wide here. The yellow ones here are unsuccessful passes that aren't finding teammates. Now, the way to interpret this is that a lot of Man United's long passes are by design. They're trying to exploit space in behind, but a lot of them are because there are no players in position to receive the ball, and because they're playing short through the middle, getting blocked, getting squeezed up, then the goalkeeper has to clear it. They don't have players up top who are able to take it down, and they're relying on winning second balls high up the pitch, so it's kind of unsustainable. So by design, they don't really want to keep the ball, but they're also just simply not very good at keeping it anyway. Now that is tactical, technical, and probably down to mental attributes now. They've lost all their confidence, no one trusts each other, they can't keep the ball's getting launched, they don't have it. But to score goals, you have to create chances, and transitional moments create these, so there is sense behind what Ten Hag is trying to do. However, when they do actually create chances, they don't take them. But why is that? Well, Ten Hag says it's not down to luck. He reckons it's because of bad decision making. And so, for example, when Rashford runs clean through on goal and only has the goalkeeper to beat, who is slightly out of position, and he opts to pass the ball across goal for Fernandes, who is being tightly marked by a centre-back or a right-back at the time. That's a bad decision because he should probably just try and put the ball in the goal. That's the aim of the game. But of course, your finishing gets worse with drops in confidence, and Man United's run means lots of players have low confidence. If you're not taking your chances, maybe you'll make that pass. And United aren't taking their chances, like I said. If you look at the XG table, it is bad. We all thought Chelsea were in trouble, but my word, United aren't that much better off, and they're only creating as many chances, really, as West Ham. But they scored 2 against Galatasaray. Well, yes, but one of them was from a corner, the ball getting cleared over the top of the high line, Rashford runs in behind, and then he manages to find Højlund with a brilliant, lovely cross which comes off of his head. And the other goal they scored was a mistake by the centre-back who slips, which then lets Højlund get in behind, sprints past him like a rocket, gets in, finishes lovely. So both goals are scored from long passes over the top and from mistakes by defenders. Now that sounds an awful lot like what we had under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Nothing's really changed under Ten Hag. It's cost hundreds of millions to make it so. Now, a lot of these problems are down to injuries. You may have heard of the injury lizard who has been striking his way through Old Trafford, stomping on all the legs. Players arrived, like Højlund, he was injured. There's no real players at left back whatsoever, so they're having to make do with lots of things. And you're seeing the knock-on effect. Things aren't quite the way they're supposed to be. Ten Hag hasn't had his first choice team. So key players have been missing. They're missing aggression, especially in the middle of the park and at the back, and that means that they lack the cohesion you want to play the kind of football Ten Hag wants to play. But they are playing the kind of football Ten Hag wants to play, it's just not working well at all. And the biggest problem is not that they can't score goals, is that they keep conceding them. Why? Well, because they're not very good out of possession. One of the things I notice quite a lot is they're not compact enough out of possession. And what I mean by that is the depth between striker and defender is too much, but more importantly, the depth between this 3 that they play this 3 here, and the other central midfielders. So when they drop deeper, they create space between lines for these 3 midfielders. So you see this line here. Now this is dangerous because it has knock-on effects when you get the ball past the first line of press. Because they're trying to block with this first striker, trying to lead the ball either to the right or the left. And then this block here, the 3 in here, are meant to stop the ball getting through. That's their job. And by design, it's meant to mean that the goalkeeper has to go to one of these 2 players wide. This is what it's doing, because they're the only real spare players. Because in theory, you can't get the ball through to this guy because Rashford's blocking it or Mount goes tight. Because what you've then got is these players are watching here, you get these players watching here, maybe Fernandes is here, maybe he's here. So everyone's got a few jobs to do as part of a man-to-man marking system after they block the middle zone. The problem is, if you play a man-to-man system and one player doesn't win their individual battles, which happens all the time for United, it causes a knock-on domino effect where everything else gets pulled apart and disrupted. And opposition managers do things on purpose to pull apart United's shape out of possession all the time. Like Brighton have done it, Arsenal did it. Here's an example from the Arsenal game. So Arsenal, they have 2 centre-backs trying to build up from the back here, but you've got obviously the striker wants to lead you one way. But what they're finding is because United were a bit deeper here, they're not trying to engage, they're just trying to block the middle of the pitch, the ball can't come through here. So this centre-back, if he's got the ball here and Fernandes is positioned to either run to jump to one of these 2 players, he can jump here as well. He doesn't want to play this pass here, it's not great. Also Arteta wants him to play longer passes to get the ball through the lines. So what ends up happening is he moves his central defenders slightly wider, same as Brighton did against United as well. And this tiny movement just creates a new passing angle. And then what you see from the Arsenal defender is that rather than going for this pass here, he wants to look for this player over here. So what they do instead is have this player ready to receive inside the pitch, and so the centre-back's going to look for that pass, and that ball looks like this. So Fernandes is trying to block this player here. If you can fire that ball through to him, it's a problem, because then Dalot gets dragged from wide inside the pitch, which then frees up this channel, which is exactly where the left back goes. So Fernandes has been bypassed and then he doesn't track, and this is where the man-to-man system falls completely apart. So the ball goes from centre-back into the left winger who moves inside, and then because that drags Dalot, creates space outside, left back overlaps, he plays a back heel flick, and suddenly you're in trouble because they've got all this space in here. United have to react. What do? Casemiro is the nearest midfielder. It's his job to get across, so he comes across. And look at the gap that leaves between him and the other central midfielder. That'll be relevant very soon. So all of this movement is designed to pull United's players out of position because of their marking system, and that means that when the ball gets up to where we are up here, Nketiah drops, which drags Lindelof out with him, which disrupts the defensive shape. Casemiro's pulled over to try and get close to the left back because the right back's been pulled inside, and the right winger is just way up the pitch and not doing enough to get back and try and help out in the situation. And then it's just one-touch football, so it comes in, off Nketiah into the left winger, and because United then drop deep to protect this area of the pitch, the box basically, that then means when the ball is fired across, you've got Odegaard coming in into this really, really dangerous zone here in space behind the midfielders because there's no midfielders there to protect it, and he finishes. So Arsenal's goal is direct, back to front, just from build-up play, pulling players out of position, far, far too simple. And lots of teams do this. Lots of managers have worked out the best way to beat United is you pull the players out of position, they'll follow you, you get space, you score. Here's Brighton doing it, I mentioned them a minute ago. The ball is fired into Welbeck, who's playing between the lines, not really compact enough. You've got players like Eriksen trying to do too many things at once. Who is he trying to mark, this guy or this guy? You've got to make a choice. If the ball's fired in, it's too late. The ball's fired in, Welbeck doesn't turn, he plays it backwards. So United players start to drop because they expect him to turn. Then the ball goes backwards, which is like a third man run. You've got a player here spare. So then you've got distance between the defense and the midfield created by that pass and the next action. Then the ball goes wide to this player here, and you can see the distance. That's where the pass is going. Eriksen now has to get out. The diamond shape has meant he's completely free. Lindelof has pulled out of his defensive line to try and get tight to Lallana because he's playing man-to-man. And this is what actually happens here. But the thing is, there's knock-on effects because you see Dalot is tight here, but this player is spare. Who goes there? Eriksen can come across if he's quick and aggressive enough. But what you need really is this player to go across and get tight to him, which means Martinez has to go tight over here, which means Lindelof, who's been dragged out tight to Lallana over here because he's coming out of his position, he's got to cover all the centre of the pitch. So the ball's fired in, again, between the lines, too much space, lots of people up here, not enough getting compact here, lots of open space to move. One touch passes gets you through this, players dragging them out of position, and then the ball is fired in. And again, you've got no one protecting this space here. You've got players being dragged, following players all over the place. And then a simple little step over by Lallana as the ball comes in means that Brighton are in goal town. But you see, all of that is from Man United being dragged out of position. It's tactical, this is the problem. It's not just individual error. They're not winning their battles, but they are being dragged out of position because of the system that they're playing. Here's Brighton doing it again. This is them just waiting on the edge of the box. You can see they've got this triangle of midfielders. They're playing a middle three, it's a diamond shape. So really what you'd want, I would say, would be to have Casemiro in this bit here, protecting the defence. This is your back line. You want someone in this space here. It's really, really valuable. But he pushes out to try and get close because McTominay's not doing enough. So you've got Dalot here, should probably get tight to Mitoma. He should be going tight here to try and get tight here. And McTominay should be here. Casemiro should be here blocking this pass in. Because of the space that is created by Casemiro falling for the trap and going for it, it means that when the ball is played in, Pascal Gross can nip in and get a ticket to goal town. But if the block worked higher up the pitch, maybe they'd be okay at stopping teams from going through the middle of them, because here we see them playing against Burnley, who had far more possession, 62% possession for Burnley against Man United. Doesn't sound ideal. But what you've got here is the middle three are blocking all these passes into players. That's what the idea is. Højlund's showing them one way, trying to stop it. The ball is played wide, this player, so the ball goes here, he then drags the play past Højlund. So the first line of press is beaten. Here's the block. They're far too wide, they're not compact enough. Fernandes has been pulled over to try and mark this player here, which creates space for this pass, which is a bad pass, breaking the lines instantly. That's within 2 actions they can go past that. And so Fernandes recognises the error and jumps to try and close him down and is going. But that leaves this player spare, which means the ball goes out to him. In the meantime, this 3 has left this player all alone. We can go back a couple of steps. You see Rashford should be on this guy here. He should drop in now. Now it's bypassed. He doesn't do it. That means he's free. So when the ball is switched, he's completely free here. And then you see the distance starts to increase between the 2 central midfielders. This happens all the time. Now Burnley push down this right wing. They're not protected by Rashford, who does come in to try and help them out, but you see there's an obvious pass here. Reguilón has to watch what's going on here. He knows that this player's running in behind. He expects Rashford to go with him. His job is this guy here. This is Reguilón's man. Rashford stops, lets the boy run through. Reguilón has to swap and go with him. The ball is played in behind. And look at United. No one's protecting the second line. There's no compactness. It's one line of defence and then just nothing. There's the players who are free. And they will be free for when the ball comes in from the side for the boy to head at goal. But this time he doesn't get into goal town. This time Onana saves it, which is good because he hasn't saved an awful lot of things since he's joined United so far. And all of that brings us to the Galatasaray game. United should be beating Galatasaray, shouldn't they? Galatasaray have never won in England. So what we see are all the things we're talking about. Højlund is going to sprint to the goalkeeper, then doesn't recover to get back in. And this is a knock-on effect, you see, because this player is completely free. Now this line of 4 are trying to block this part of the pitch, stop passes going through the middle. They're doing that okay. They're leaving these guys with loads of space because that's going to force a long pass. And so what happens, because Højlund doesn't get into him, he has loads of space. Here's Mason Mount saying, come on, come on, come on, we need you to come in to put pressure on him because otherwise the high line we're playing is going to be in trouble. But he doesn't do that. And this guy, if Mason Mount pushes out to get tight to him, that leaves this guy free who can then play through the middle. So that would just disrupt the whole thing. Mason Mount can't go to close this guy down. You've got to put pressure on this guy or the high line that is further up the pitch is going to be in all sorts of trouble. And because there's no pressure, Davinson Sanchez can step forward, pick his pass. Zaha makes a great run from out to in. and that is how the ball gets to him. Then Dalot loses his individual battle. All the things we're talking about, but even worse, look at the compactness. There is none. There's no one here. They're too far apart, because then what happens, if you look, this guy is free. This guy's running in. There's no one protecting this part of the team. Again, this is where Casemiro was meant to be. This is where Amrabat's meant to be. Who's meant to be here? And the second goal Galatasaray score, same problem once more. Loads of space in the middle. Amrabat's been caught out of position. This happens. He's not a left back, but worse is that when he gets to this part of the pitch, you see that again, no one is protecting this space. They're all out of position. Lindelof's been pulled out of position by his man-to-man marking system. No one's protecting it. That's how they score. And the final goal, what you see is that Amrabat is playing this guy onside. So that's the problem, you think. But take it a step backwards, and what you see is that Amrabat has no passing options. This pass over here is too risky because it's got to be either high or drilled, and this guy can pounce on it. They're down to 10 men at the time. And then what you've got is Onana is back here. He's had a bit of a bad game. Doesn't really want to play this ball back here because if he gets it wrong, Icardi's going to nip in and steal that ball as well. His only real option is to hoof it, and so he does. And that's also kind of what Ten Hag wants. Get the ball forward quickly, try and create transitional moments and pounce. But they're not compact enough to take advantage of the second ball. And so the defender steps up, heads the ball away, and then United are in trouble because that plays Icardi onside because Amrabat doesn't get back into position. So all the things in Galatasaray are things we've seen all season from United. They're not strong enough in 1v1 battles. They're easy to play through, especially through the middle. They get dragged out of position too easily, and there's no organisation, structure, or aggression in the middle of the pitch. Now, you might think I'm being reactionary, but I'm not. If you go back through the season so far, what we see is that the first game of the season against Wolves, United should have lost that. Expected goals tells us that. My eyes tell me that. You can see in the game they were outplayed by Wolves but got a lucky goal and managed to win it. Then they played Tottenham and were comfortably beaten 2-0. And then they went 2-0 down to Nottingham Forest. They should be beating Nottingham Forest, but they did beat them in the end. They got a 3-2 win thanks to a free kick and a penalty against 10 men, making it 6 points out of 9, when it should probably be 0. Then Arsenal did them 3-1. Took them a while. They weren't exactly on fire either. Then Brighton pulled them apart for a 3-1 win, with United playing a diamond that didn't work at all. Then Bayern Munich beat them 4-3, no shame in that whatsoever. And then Burnley controlled the game against them and lost because Johnny Evans chipped a ball over the top for Fernandes to score a wonder volley. But then they beat Crystal Palace reserves in the cup, so everything was fine. But then they lost 1-0 to Crystal Palace, who Ten Hag said didn't have any of the game, but he did say the defending for the free kick was terrible. There's been tactical problems, there's been individual problems, the whole thing's an absolute mess, and it all just came to one when they lost to Galatasaray in the Champions League. At the moment, Man United are bad.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.